Hey guys, it's Mr. Mini Painter here, and today we will be painting Baron Wolfgang Von Strucker, head of the Hydra troopers and founder. I think he was founder of Hydra, wasn't he? Yeah, well, let's paint him today. As you can see here, I spray painted my model, assembled it of course, and did some zenithal highlighting. So I used a black spray first, and afterwards in this direction, top down, I used a light gray spray. And I'm going to be using a contrast paint for the greens, so to have some shading in advance is actually very handy. Now here I use Carandra's Green, which is a green contrast paint, a quite bright one. You can choose to go darker if you want, but I like those Hydra troopers to be, as in the comics, very bright green. And what better way to do the commander as well in the same green colors. So I'm using a fairly large brush here because it's quite a surface. So just go ahead, and when using contrast paints, make sure that you finish one area at a time. So when you start with an arm, finish the arm, because contrast paints, they tend to dry quite quickly and create shade effects. You don't want to go over that again. Now in this model there is of course also a lot of yellow, and for that I used Everland Sunset, which is a quite dark, maybe orangey yellow, which I really liked as a base color. Make sure not to touch the green, so go very easy on this one. I used a slightly smaller brush for this one, but you can use whatever you want. I mean, the surfaces of yellow are quite big, so you don't need a fine detail brush or anything. I did the straps on his arms here, the bands. Now for the chest logo I used a brighter yellow, phalanx yellow in this case, because I wanted it to be different than the rest. So what I did here is touch all of the insides, because we're going to be using a dark color to give the tentacles shape. And now what I did after this is use some Eandon Yellow, contrast paint, over the previous Everland Sunset to create some shading effects, and they complement each other quite nicely. And if you stick to the middle of the previously painted color, you get an instant highlight on the edges. You can do so if you want. I mean, you can take the extra time and go over it. But you can do this if you want to be speeding things up a little bit. Now as a highlight on the green, I mixed Warpstone Glow with some Flesh Gets Yellow to be adding some highlights to the green areas. When creating highlights on green, you want to add some yellow to create this light effects. And I think I used a more or less one-on-one solution on this one and touched all the raised areas. So the muscles, the collar here, all the raised areas you can see here. Just touch them up a little bit and you get some very nice effects. Make sure to leave the dark recessed areas as they are. After that I used Night Questor Flesh on the fleshy parts of the model, which is in this case only his head. I started doing the entire head. He has this monocle in his eye, but I finished it later on. When done, I used Reikland Flesh Shade to shade all the areas, create some nice shades on those eyelids, some wrinkles. Now while we let that dry, I continued on the belt and I used Black Legion to touch the insides of the belt buckle And also what is this, kind of a brooch or a medal of some sorts on his shoulder here. And the reason I use a contrast paint is that it flows quite nicely in the recesses, and you can touch up all the other parts that you accidentally hit with a paper towel or whatever. And I created some shades where the green and yellow come together, just to get more of a cartoony effect a little bit, and some extra shades helps define your colors better, I think. So that's what I did here. Make sure to use a very fine detail brush, because you can end up using too much. Now for the rim of the logo on his chest, I used a Baden black. Make sure that you have a very fine tip and only touch those very edges of the model. You can use the side of your brush if you want. And as you can see here, when you touch it with the sides, you leave the inside nice and yellow, and you get a great effect on a quite easy way, I think. Now for the eyes, I used palette witch flesh, as I do with most eyes, and what you want to do here is try and leave some of the shaded parts, the Wayland flesh shaded parts, visible. So keep the eyes quite small, actually eye singular, because the other one is having a monocle. And now you try and create a pupil in there with a Baden black. Make sure to thin down your paint a little bit, because it makes it so much easier. Now I did it on the other eye as well, and I'm going to paint over the monocle afterwards, so you have some sort of see-through effect. Next I used Mephiston red and Abaddon black on his glove. He has this fiery superpower and a bright red glove on the box art, so that's what I'm going for here. But I didn't want to start too bright. I want to be able to highlight it later on, so mixed some black into it. And there we are. Next I used Imperial Fist, which is a contrast paint for the flame, and it's quite a dark one. You can use Iyanden yellow if you want, or if you're not into contrast paints, just pick some yellow and add some color and darkness later on. I went over it again with Iyanden yellow because I think the more orangey look, well, I like it very much, so that's basically why I did it. And I did it while my paint from the glove was wet, so I mixed a little bit of the red into it. You get a nice transition from the reds into the yellows, as you see here. Next I used Blood Angels red, and I mixed it a little bit with the Iyanden yellow to create some extra red effects. The nice thing about contrast paints is that you can mix them together while wet, so you get nice transitions. Now I used some white scar to create highlighted areas on the glove. Why white? Because you can go over them, over this white with another color to create a source lighting effect, as I can show you here. And I used the previously used Imperial Fist to go over that glove again and create the illusion of a yellow glow on his red glove, which makes it look quite nice, I think. When using object source lighting, you really want to think where your object, your light source is coming from. So make sure that with the fire it's easy, it's the fire itself. When you're doing the model, before, just make sure where the light is coming from, where the light would normally reflect on parts of the body, the face, etc. Now for his glasses I used Frostheart, which is also a contrast paint, and I thinned it down really much. And afterwards I used some Cadian Flesh Tone to start highlighting his skin. And when doing so, make sure that you stick to parts of the head. So for example, the cheeks, the nose, the chin, the lips. And do the same afterwards with some Kisela flesh if you want to take it even further. Leave those dark areas as they want, because you want to see the previous color when doing highlights. So don't go over all of it. I used the cheekbones, the nose, I gave them all a brighter version, a bit of a forehead. Now after this I used white scar on his face in a thinned down form, and I did it on the side where the fire was glowing. So you can use the same yen and yellow to create a reflection of this bright yellow fire glow on his face. Be very careful not to overdo it, because you don't want to give him a yellow face, you want to just show the glow. And I think it looks very, very nice. So I just did this, his right side of the face, because that's where the fire is, and I left the other parts as it was. And I did the same on his suit. So I gave it a little bit of white touch up on his shoulder, on his the collar, parts of his arm, and also touched it up with some yellow, because the reflection is going on all parts, right? Not just one. So as you can see here, I touched parts of his suit with the same white and gave that yellow glow to it as well. Now if you want to learn how to paint bases, you can check some of my other videos. I more or less use the same technique with all MCP characters, so you can check that in one of the others if you want. Well, and after this is done, we have a finished Baron Strucker. Looks quite nice, right? Look at that flame, look at that greens. I really love how it ended, how it turned out. So yeah, thank you so much for watching again, and I hope to see you in one of my next videos. If you like this content, please make sure to subscribe.